All right, so let me continue. So with this one here, we can just notice how the activities or the activity drivers are being grouped into the different activities. So we will be using them to allocate the cost to the different activities later on. So how do we do that? We are given the direct labor hours down to machine hours. We will eliminate the non-value added activities. Then we are going to develop fractions out of the sum. So that's why here, that is 0.2 divided by 0.7. That is going to give us fraction. 0.2 divided by 0.7, that is 0.28571 4 times 10,000. If we multiply that, that's 2,857. So that's also 0.2 divided by 0.7 and so on. We do the computation horizontally. Then we allocate, of course, accordingly. Number of letters processed, that's 25 over 25. That is going to be, for example, 8,000. So that's 1 multiplied by 8,000 equals 8,000 as well. And that's the case there. So for telephone also, the telephone would be based here. Let's check number of telephone calls. Then travel is not included, while equipment is for depreciation. All right. So telephone, let's check. Because we cannot see it here, but probably this is also a non-value added activity. That's why it has been eliminated. But anyway, that's the point. So eliminate the non-value added activity, remaining the value added, then we allocate by developing fractions out of the given cost drivers and allocate for each activity. Then we get the total, and if we divide that with the number of units sold, that's going to be the activity cost per unit. All right. Then after that would be the balanced scorecard. So in a balanced scorecard, the introduction is that there must be a goal first, then a strategy, and the scorecard. The goal is, of course, the purpose or the objective. It's the abstract expression. It may not be specific yet. It's like lacking details, and the terms might be vague for now. So it's like the vision in some ways, but it is just much more specific than vision and mission. All right, so it is the desired state of affairs or things to accomplish in a given period of time. While strategy is basically the specific or more specific form of the goal. Then it is developed or may be developed by zeroing on in a statement of profit or loss of an enterprise and also on its statement of financial position or statement of cash flows. So the strategy would then be the specific way or course of action as to how do we achieve the goal. All right, although the goal would be specific by becoming an objective, and the objective much more to change to strategy or to go into strategy to be more specified or specified further on. Now, for balanced scorecard, what would be the way to do it later on? That is to implement it, operationalize it. The balanced scorecard would be system to effectively use or communicate strategies into concrete terms to all personnel of the organization. Then identify the key success areas, because we will know later on as to what areas are very important in terms of balanced scorecard. The philosophy here is that the objective of business activities is still to maximize the owner's wealth. And there are four areas to consider. customer perspective, internal business perspective, innovation and learning, and financial perspective. So it is clear here that for each perspective, there would be areas to focus on. Okay, so here are the areas, the summaries of each. Customer perspective would be to satisfy the customer's wants and needs. We've said that customer is the king. Internal business is about the operations of the business. Innovation and learning is that there would be improvement, continuous in that sense, or Kaizen, which would sustain the business in the long run. So learning is there and it's never ending so that changes, when they do come, the business will be ready to adapt and adjust accordingly. Then financial, of course, we'll be talking about money matters. So these four areas are the lead activities because they would generate revenues, as said here, incur costs, derive profit, and increase the enterprise as well. So these areas in the balance scorecard would be very helpful so that the organization would be able to achieve the objectives, become profitable, and sustain in the long run. If you can notice, the concepts are very connected with each other. We're just using different techniques, but then, or let's just say sometimes philosophies, but they connect to one objective, that is to satisfy customer needs and wants so that the company would be profitable and sustain in the long run. So we can summarize everything. Key performance indicators. So here, for every perspective, there's the goal and there's the measure. So this is like, in a sense, activity-based costing. For customer, there's a new product. So what would be the percentage of sales and so on. For internal business, so example, technology or technology capability, that's manufacturing configuration versus competition. So those areas that we talk about, traditional, let's say, versus the computerized or automated. If we are now in the automated part, then the company's manufacturing processes versus the customers. Then innovation and learning, let's say technology leadership, the time to develop next gen or generation of products, or financial to survive the cash flows. Anyway, there are also advantages and disadvantages here. For each technique or concept, there would be advantage, there will also be disadvantages. For the balance scorecard, the internal and external variables are there, but there can be conflicting measures. Corporate strategy advantage, but in terms of these, they have to be carefully done, devised, agreed upon, and monitored. There are financial and non-financial measures. It would involve expertise and interpretation is needed. Then we have also the other management techniques. So we have benchmarking, wherein we look into the best practices of the organization or of others, we emulate them and we follow. So that's what happened with the Japanese companies wherein they were successful before in terms of automation and in terms of car manufacturing. And then people from US and businessmen learned from them, especially that the Japanese market already invaded US in terms of, I'm talking about economic things. Advanced manufacturing technology. So there are already robots employed, robotics, there's automation, there's technology, CAM, computer-aided manufacturing, and CAD, computer-aided design is there. So it's like faster and quicker to produce the products. Computer-aided manufacturing is using automated manufacturing systems. So there's robots, technology, etc. While that's aided, computer-aided manufacturing, CAM, CAM. CIM is computer integrated manufacturing, so high level automated manufacturing system. So these things are related to each other. Next is MRP 1 and 2. What's the difference? For MRP 1, that's going to talk only the usage of technology about raw materials. So anything that has to do with raw materials, including the orders, then also the costs, the time to get the raw materials, and etc. But for MRP2, we're talking about, aside from the raw materials, we also include other resources used in the production process. So aside from the raw materials, we also include the direct labor and the factory overhead, which are also important components of manufacturing costs. So the term here is materials requirements. So that's MRP1. The requirements for raw materials or direct materials or supplies. Here, manufacturing resource. So all resources needed to produce the products. Then in larger scale, we also have the ERP, in which this would now involve all other departments and all other areas of the company: human resource, marketing, sales, logistics, purchasing, etc. So in other words, in comparison or in relation to the MRP 1 and 2, ARP is the extension of them. Pareto's law, it has been observed that 80% of those people who are wealthy actually are basically the people that are like holding much wealth in the Italy or in the country. So this is observed by Vilfredo Pareto in his particular law. So this was a law already because this has been found out to be true like at least 100%. For one or something to become a law, it should be producing the same results at least 100 times in experiments. So it has been found out that in his particular law, 80% of the wealth of people in Milan, Italy was owned by 20% of its citizens. So meaning majority is owned by the little or few, and few is owned by the many. So something like that. So 80% of the wealth is owned by 20% of the citizens. So 20% of the wealth is owned by 80% of the citizens, or vice versa. In other fields also, it has been found out that 80% of the observations account for 20% of the explanations, or vice versa. Or 20% of what we have seen would account for 80% of the occurrences. So this is very true in experiments, in social sciences, and other fields of research. If we observe just a sample, that can be very powerful to detect or explain 80%. Next is BCG, Boston Consulting Group Portfolio Matrix. So in this particular case, the BCG portfolio matrix would help us strategize the individual role, position, and contribution of each product. So here is the illustration. You have the high and the low, and this is the market growth. And you have here dog, cash cow, and star, and the company. So in this particular case, we can see that there are 4 stages, of course, in the product life cycle, as said. In life cycle costing, so infancy, growth, expansion, maturity, or decline. Maturity is also known as saturation. In the infancy stage, the company and the product is still unknown, so there is a question mark. Then later on, the product could become a star or a dog. So the star has really a high growth rate and there's a high market share. Then it could slow down its market growth, but it retains its market leadership. So it's becoming a cash cow. So that is the maturation stage. Then also we can think of other terms like build, hold, harvest, and divest, wherein the build or build, that's build, is that the question mark product into a star transformation. So question mark to star. Next, hold is that we will preserve the market share as a star or a cash cow, meaning maintain what we have or the share that we have. Harvest is to have the cash cow, so get what we have or what we can from the investment. So this is now the time that we reap the rewards and benefits coming from the products. And divest is we slowly remove, if not abrupt or not immediate or fast, underperforming products. So those items that are no longer relevant and no longer useful should be eliminated or removed slowly or abrupt, depending on the case. That's divest. Next, contingency theory is basically preparing for what is going to happen in the future time that we think would happen, and then we are preparing for the future. In other words, that's contingency. So this simply states that the design of the accounting information system depends on the need of the management using it. Of course, it's needs based. This is service concern. So this is much of satisfying what will be the want or need of the customers or users. And so in this case, that's why we are having the contingency theory, in that the accounting system or information system is designed so that it would satisfy the need of the users who happens to be the management. On top of that, I also mentioned contingency theory, wherein the management is preparing for certain events to happen in the future that it believes can happen. So it's better to be proactive and to prepare for what is about to happen than not taking any action at all. So this is contingency theory. And also this is the explanation of there's no such thing as one size fits all. So there's no way that one particular case or product can satisfy all needs of people. It may satisfy the common ones, but not everything. So that's contingency. And we have also the last one, I think, is Mackenzie 7S model. So in his particular model, there are 3 hard elements and 4 soft elements. The hard ones are the strategy, structure, and systems of the company, which would be overall, like on the top at the start of the business. The soft ones would be those that would involve people and skills and communication. So skills, shared values, style, and staff. So in this case, we can learn that in a particular company, there would be link between the organization's behavior and the individuals within it. So there's a link between the hardcore, which is normally set or coming from the top, and then the lower ones are coming from the people composing the organization or business. Right. So that ends our discussions for second part of strategic management philosophies. And hopefully you learned something from this one. And I'll see you next time for another session or another particular discussions or our sessions again or once again about management advisory services. And I'll see you next time, guys. God bless.